Despite soaring inflation, NEDA says the Philippines is bound to hit the government's economic growth target of 6.5 to 7.5% this year. The agency pins its hopes on the economy's good showing in the third quarter, bolstered by multi-sectoral growth as pandemic restrictions were further eased. Still, NEDA Undersecretary Rosemary Edilion says that high inflation remains a challenge for Filipinos. Edilion adds that the impact of typhoons, Carding and Paeng exacerbated the situation. To support growth and persisting high prices, Edilion said the government should make strategic investments in certain industries.
Para sa patuloy na paglakas ng ekonomiya natin, magkaroon po tayo ng mas maraming trabaho. Hindi natin na kailangan, resilient yung recovery natin. So mukhang kailangan nating magbago rin ng in terms of the technology na ginagamit natin para mas resilient na tayo sa lahat ng bagay, so, from transport to mga business processes natin, dapat mas magana na tayo, technology, mas mag-modernize tayo. And for this, we really need yung mga investments on yung mga strategic na industries natin.
To share his insights regarding President Marcos's pronouncements in Cambodia, as well as the NEDA's growth targets, we have with us via Zoom Action for Economic Reforms Program Officer AJ Montesa. Good evening, AJ, and welcome to The Big Story.
Hi, good evening, Cito. Good evening to all the viewers. Thanks for having me on.
Okay, beginning with the NEDA statement on GDP, it's looking like the Philippines will hit the government's target GDP for the year. But does this mean that the impact of inflation on consumption will come at a later time, like maybe first quarter of 2023?
Right. So the country's macroeconomic fundamentals remain strong. Recent GDP growth and employment trends actually do look positive. So GDP growth has exceeded 7% already for the past 6 quarters. And in terms of sectors, this has been driven primarily by gross capital formation as well as higher consumer spending. In terms of industrial sectors, construction has been strong while manufacturing has been recovering but seemingly been losing steam the past 2 quarters though. So for services, transport, as well as accommodation and food service sectors are experiencing strong growth in the post-pandemic recovery. So what we're seeing now is really the impact of the lifting of restrictions and how it's bolstering our economy moving forward. Unemployment is also down from 8.9% last September in 2021 to just 5% in September 2022. So it shows also that more and more of our economy is opening up. More Filipinos are also able to find jobs, right? So as regards inflation, I think it presents itself a threat as inflation has been reported to be 7.7% already. By commodities, it's been driven by rising prices in gas and electricity and in food commodities such as corn, sugar, and oils. So in response to this, Bangko Sentral has already signaled its aggressive approach by combating inflation as it raised policy rates by 75 basis points already just last week. And again, this is a response to what the United States has already done by also raising the 75 basis points in the policy rate as well. So I think if the government wants to be more effective in its combating of inflation, the BSP should continue to be aggressive. But at the same time, I think we also need to pursue non-monetary policies as well. So I think this is where agricultural policy can come in. It was mentioned that we were recently hit by several typhoons and we need to be more resilient. So I think agricultural policy will help to address the short-run issues of inefficiencies, for example, shortages in corn, in sugar, and all of these other food commodities as well.
Okay, now, is this growth being felt on the ground? Are poverty levels lower? Unemployment improved? Is life better than last year? What about this food crisis? Many of the opinion writers have been focusing on agriculture, etc., talking about food crisis this December. How can we be growing so much and yet have a food crisis?
Right. So that's a very good question. I think as regards the question of whether this is being felt on the ground, it's too early to tell. The latest poverty figures are from 2021, which showed that poverty did increase as a result of the pandemic compared to 2018. So we'll be producing the next updated poverty figures in 2024 still. So it's too early to tell. But the data says that at least we're on a path to recovery. So GDP growth has been consistent. Consumer spending has also increased. And the sectors that have been hardest hit by the pandemic, such as the transport sector, food and accommodations, and other services are also the ones that are recovering the most. So you can expect the workers in these sectors to be the ones who are recovering the most. So I think this is primarily benefiting the middle class Filipinos. But as for the poor, I think this is where inflation will hit the hardest. As food prices go up, we can expect that this disproportionately affects poorer Filipino households who spend more of their income on food. So I think aside from agricultural policy that needs to address shortages in corn, in sugar, and even in fish, for example, the government also needs to continue to provide enough assistance, especially financial assistance, to those who are most affected by inflationary pressures.
Okay, AJ, last question. What about the President or President Bongbong's statement regarding having a unified stand on the South China Sea issues and calling out Pyongyang for its missile launches? Is this going to affect or benefit the economy? What's your assessment of those statements? And towards what results are they aimed?
Right. So we're coming into a context where the Ukraine-Russia crisis or war has exerted some substantial pressure on the economy as well, and it's an external threat that we need to address. So I think where the president is coming from is he also wants to exercise restraint in the international economy and international relations, where conflict is not good for recovery in general. So whether it's for the Philippines or it's for the ASEAN region, I think exercising restraint as regards potential conflicts is a good call to make for the global economy as we try to recover from the global pandemic.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, AJ Montesa from Action on Economic Reforms. Have a good evening.